Hey there! I'm beyond excited to kick off your journey into Imprint Short Stories, where we dive into thrilling, captivating, and original tales. Brace yourself for an electrifying adventure because today's story is an absolute game changer. Now sit back and enjoy the story, The Trauma of a Partitioned Country.
Yusuf was a little boy when men carrying three-legged instruments, tape lines, prism poles, and notebooks entered his village of Samu. Only one of the 7 men was white. The white man sat in his sealed-up car with the engine running. A particular black man entered the car from time to time and conversed with the white man. There were impossible rumors that the people would split the ground and prevent families from contacting one another. Many remained skeptical because they could not imagine the possibility of such an occurrence. As the days became weeks and the weeks rolled into months, the men put concrete markers between family homes, farms, plantations, and cemeteries. The men left without saying a word to the people of the village of Samu. After a few months, the people forgot all about it. One day, 5 men backed by a pickup loaded with armed men came to Samu. All the members of the team were locals. The leader spoke to the people of Samu in the village square. "Today, my mission is simple," he said. "We are here to inform you that your territory is now called Gaboland. The land across the street is changed from Partitioned to Maajuland. They may have been your brothers and sisters, but from today, you belong to separate countries. Soon, your currencies, flags, and laws will differ from them. You will also learn to speak different languages. How can this be? We share the same flesh and blood. The children of our wives live across that street. Half of our cocoa plantations lie across that street." The chief of Samu grumbled. "No one will prevent you from seeing your wife or children. Now you have the option to belong to Gaboland or Maajuland. This is a choice that is open to you today. Tomorrow may be too late." Yusuf spent most of his time commuting between Samu and Partitioned. For him, the two lands were the same. At 18, he married a young girl in Partitioned, a small town across the road. Suma and Partitioned once belonged to one nation. Now Partitioned was a part of Muja. His father-in-law pleaded with him to move to Partitioned instead of taking his only daughter away. 6 years later, Yusuf moved to the capital city of Maajuland with his wife to become a laborer following a plague that devastated all the businesses of his father-in-law. At that time, the capital city of Maajuland was a small town without roads, drainage, railroad, or utilities and telecommunications. Yusuf worked with the Maajuland Railroad Construction Company. The working condition was no better than slavery. Yusuf endured the horrendous back-breaking labor. During this time, a splinter of crushed rock damaged his right eye. He spent 8 weeks in the hospital before he returned to work. The 250 kilometers railroad became operational 6 years after construction commenced. Yusuf was a part of this construction from the word go. Yusuf moved his wife and 2 children further north to work on the longest road in Maajuland. 3 years later, he joined the construction of a hydro plant. Yusuf's eye worsened after the commissioning of the hydro plant. He could no longer perform intensive labor. He settled down to teach Arabic, which he learned from his father-in-law. That is how he acquired the name Malam Yusuf, which became his full and official name. Yusuf and his wife had 6 children. His first daughter married at 16 after her elementary education. All his 5 sons completed secondary school. 2 went to university, 1 to the Polytechnic, and the youngest became a teacher. Yusuf had no problem moving back and forth between Maajuland and Gaboland. The people along the border were one people and spoke the same language. However, all this changed after the first census in Maajuland. By that time, Malam Yusuf was about 47 years old. He was sitting with his 2 wives and children when the census enumerator approached. "Mr. Malam, where were you born?" the census official asked. "Samu, or if you prefer, Gaboland," he said. "Do you have children?" the official asked. "Yes, 1 girl and 5 boys," Malam Yusuf responded. "Can I see their birth certificates?" he called his wife. She came running. He spoke to her in the local language. She ran to the room and returned with a pile of paper for the enumerators to search through. After browsing through the documents, the officials booked Malam's wife and children as citizen, but Malam as a foreigner. The economic situation in Maajuland began to deteriorate a year after the census. Schools shut down because teachers did not get paid. The youths, pensioners, and students pressured the government for answers to their woes. The government blamed foreigners, especially that next door, for the economic downturn. According to the Bureau of National Statistics, foreigners have infiltrated the system and occupied a third of the jobs in the land. The government wanted all foreigners to leave. Radio stations and government propagandists took over the airwaves with announcements, jingles, and hate speech, branded as news and entertainment. Let the foreigners give us peace. Take away your poverty. Maajuland must thrive. Malam Yusuf was one of the first people the official of Maajuland attempted to deport. His wife and children did all they could to get his name off the deportation list, but to no avail. His first son took the government to court, but the sentiments against foreigners had penetrated the courts. No judge worth his salt could grant Malam Yusuf a reprieve, temporary or permanent. Anything otherwise would be interpreted as undermining the effort of the government to restore Maajuland to its former glory. Malam Yusuf was deported to Gaboland without his wife and children. The question for him was, where is home? He had spent his entire productive life in Maajuland. He had children, relatives, brothers and sisters in Maajuland. However, that was insufficient to prove he belonged there or grant him a permanent stay. Maajuland was not ready to accept him as one of its own. His living conditions and prospects in Gaboland grew bleaker and darker than in Maajuland. So he decided to return to live in Maajuland with his wife and children as a foreigner in the land he gave his whole life to build. A land in which he was older than at least 80% of the population. He spoke half of the language in Maajuland, shared a bloodline with thousands of its citizens, and gave all his strength to this country that is rejecting him because he did not possess the piece of paper to prove he belonged. One night he sneaked out of Maajuland into Gaboland. He traveled by foot for half a day to evade the border patrol that had become plentiful to stamp the flow of illegal foreigners, something he had become. Though the government succeeded in flushing out more than 80% of foreigners, the economy continued to slide. The government did not relent in its effort to blame foreigners for the country's woes. After traveling all night, Malam Yusuf boarded a truck loaded with cows and produce for the capital. He was now returning as an illegal foreigner. He finally reached the outskirts of the city of Gombe, the capital of Gaboland. There he was arrested and sent to prison for illegal entry. He sat before a group of young men in their early to mid-20s and told them about his life in Maajuland, how he joined forces with the men who built the seaport, the railways, the hydro plant, the water treatment plant, and the motorway. He told them that his dead eye was buried in this land. His wife and children were born in Gaboland. The young men laughed and mocked him. They hardly believed a word he said. They have never heard many of the strange things he talked about. He told them about the myth of the missing diamond. Only one of them had heard about it, but that one also did not believe a smuggling foreigner would know anything about it. "Are you sure?" the man asked. "Wallahi," Malam Yusuf said. "What does wallahi mean?" the man asked. "I swear to Allah," Malam Yusuf said. The young soldier slapped him across the face. "Wallahi, it is true," he repeated. "Maybe we should ask him to prove he is telling the truth," a soldier asked when the matter reached them. "You are right," the first soldier said. He faced Malam Yusuf. "How can we ascertain that you speak the truth?" "I helped to bury the missing diamond with these hands. Everything unfolded before my eyes. Wallahi." "Where was the diamond buried?" "Close to the middle of the railway line," Malam Yusuf said as he removed his shirt. He turned his bare back to the soldiers. There were letters, numbers, and crisscrossed lines engraved on his back. They looked at the occultic-looking diagram and exchanged glances, speechless. Immediately, they called headquarters to report the incident. A police van, escorted by armed men, picked Malam Yusuf to the police headquarters. When Malam entered the room, there was seated the chief of police, the head of the army, and an old man called Richmond. Old man, Richmond drew near and inspected the inscription first with his naked eyes. Then he pulled out his magnifying glass. He traced each line for 15 minutes and decoded the numbers and letters on Malam Yusuf's back. He then compared his findings with notes from his black book. He frowned after a long, deep, thoughtful breath. and a quick inhalation. I think he is telling the truth, but he must give us more to work with. I can identify the location on his back, but the area is broad. Without specifics, we will never find the diamond. The diamond is the biggest and purest ever seen in this part of the world. It will change the fortune of our nation when located. We will take Malam Yusuf to the State Ministerial Hotel. Before then, do not share this information with anyone. I will inform the head of state about this significant development. Meanwhile, Malam Yusuf will give me a recorded statement. Malam, can you tell us all about this diamond? I was 17 years old at the time and worked on the mine. After a heavy downpour, I stumbled across this stone. It was different from all the stones I had seen on this mine. I took it to the office to the overall manager. His name was Elizabeth Marshall. Malam paused, unsure he pronounced the name correctly. Go ahead, you mean Roosevelt Marshall. He was head of operations during the early days of the mine. Malam Yusuf nodded. That is the name, Roosevelt Marshall. He told me never to speak to anyone about my find. I was surprised, but agreed. He took me to the market, bought a sheep, and made me take an oath that I would tell nobody. So, you did not know you have found the biggest diamond in this country ever? Musa, my best friend, told me it was a diamond. I believed him because he worked on a diamond creek for many years. The next day, the white man asked me to follow him into the bush, and we buried the diamond. He said he was going to his country, but he never returned. But before he left, he put this mark on me. Did he tell you what the mark meant? Malam Yusuf nodded. He said if he does not return, I can show the mark to the white men in the church. They will know what to do. Did you show it to the white man in his church? No, Malam Yusuf said. But why? Another man interrogated. I think he died of a heart attack. I heard about his death 1 year later. So, what did you do next? Malam Yusuf said, Nothing. I did nothing but hope Elizabeth would return one day. Do you remember the location? Yusuf nodded. 2 days later, Yusuf took a team to the site diagrammed on his back. He went next to the palm tree and counted 5 strides to the right. Dig here. He pointed to the spot. The men set to work. About 30 minutes later, the men hit a metal box. That's it, Malam Yusuf shouted. The Minister of Mines and Development shook Yusuf's hand. This is what it means to be a responsible and patriotic citizen. But I am not a citizen, let alone a patriotic one, Yusuf said. Yes, you are, the minister said. No, I am not, Yusuf insisted. Tell me about it, the minister said. I built the railroad, the highways and byways. I buried my right eyes on this soil. I built the city walls and gates. I gave this land 6 well-deserving children. I have taught thousands of children in this land and supported countless that were not my own. I have never committed a crime or gone to prison. I have done nothing against this country, except I was across the street when its name changed from Punan to Maajuland. The minister shook his head. We must reform the law. This country should belong to those who choose to be part of it, those who built it, whether by birth or any other means. Today you have become a citizen, an honorary citizen. Your passport will be ready tomorrow.
If you enjoyed this story, then hit that subscribed button and turn on all notifications so that you do not miss the next story in this series.